Well, I wasn't the hugest fan of The Last Jedi. I didn't hate it, didn't love it, was kind of in the middle. I have a lot of issues with some of the things in the film that happen and don't happen, or how they happen, or how they treat certain characters. So I'm not going to get into all that now, because Lord knows we'll be here all day with Rob, because we know how you feel about it. Your hatred grows day by day.
Like that in Living Color sketch. Hated it.
Don't get 2 snaps, huh?
no 2 snaps.
Oh, so anyway, though, one thing that did upset me, though, when we went forward is we learned some information about the process that Disney took with the, or should we say Lucasfilm actually took with this film, and referring to The Last Jedi. And what we heard at first was there was no set plan, according to, I believe, Rian Johnson.
There still doesn't seem to be a set plan. So.
Evidently, regardless of what happened in the film, whether I had loved it or not at the end of the movie, I still got to sit there and go, what the fuck are you thinking not starting with a plan for these 3 films? You had to have known at least a good outline of where you're going with this. And it seems to be that that was the case, was it not, Rob?
Oh yeah, that was the case. We're just actually finding out this now. All the dirt's coming out, actually. Express.co.uk, the entertainment section, has actually the story. It's been reported other places. This is where we're sourcing it from. Rian Johnson apparently threw out the entire Last Jedi outline, according to Daisy Ridley. Star Wars Episode 8 star Daisy Ridley says J.J. Abrams laid out a plan for The Last Jedi and Episode 9, but Rian Johnson discarded it. In a new French interview, Ridley revealed how much Johnson changed from the original vision laid out by The Force Awakens director Abrams. This is one of the things that has most frustrated dissenters who can't understand how such a long-standing continuous storyline suddenly has a final 3-movie act without an apparent clear arc and subject to change as each new director takes over. Ridley discussed the shifting story plans in Geek Le Mag, translated by Mika. M-I-C-A. Now that's how this
It sounds so cool in French.
Geek Le Mag. Anyway, she said, and okay, pay attention kids, she said, here's what I think I know. JJ, referring to JJ Abrams, wrote Episode 7 as well as drafts for 8 and 9. Then Rian Johnson arrived and wrote The Last Jedi entirely. I believe there was some sort of general consensus on the main lines of the trilogy, but apart from that, every director writes and realizes his film in his own way. Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams met to discuss all of this, although Episode 8 is still his very own work. I believe Rian didn't keep anything from the first draft of Episode 8. Oh!
Wow. Well, I gotta say this. For those of you out there who say that JJ doesn't finish anything, according to Daisy, he did.
I feel like Martin Landau in Ed Wood. You know that scene where the fan asks him for for an autograph? I just want to scream, you know, fuck you!
Oh man, whether you hate JJ or not, it was the most idiotic thing to go forward without an entire plan, let alone some of the other rumors and stories we were hearing afterwards about how Johnson hadn't even seen the movie when he started writing and all this other crap, as referring to Force Awakens.
He was writing The Last Jedi as they were shooting The Force Awakens. That's what I had read.
And I'm sorry, I get it. You're the guy coming into a new job, and the guy before you, he leaves a list of things that you should and shouldn't do. Granted, not all of them you're going to want to follow. You're going to find your own way. But there's probably those first 2 or 3 that you probably should pay attention to, because there's probably a reason that they're there.
Don't piss off the boss. Feed the guard dog before you leave at night. But it just reaffirms that this trilogy now is a directionless mess. It really is.
I want to know who let this happen. If it's Kathleen Kennedy, so help me. I mean, I've stuck up for her a lot. Her feminist views aside, she was handpicked by George Lucas for this job, and I don't know the whole story, so I can't sit there and go, oh, Disney's, interfering too much and making it hard for her, or she's just making dumb decisions left and right, because the way everything has gone down in the last couple years since Rogue One with the issues behind the scenes with directors, you gotta wonder something's up.
I'm having a difficult time putting this into words. I understand you want to do your own thing, you want to leave your mark, but to me, like I said, this is not only a gigantic middle finger to the fans, this is a gigantic middle finger to J.J. Abrams, too.
Right. And I'll say this, too, just real quick. aside, my feelings about the film aside, this is not the kind of thing you do with one of these type of movies in the franchise. You do this with a side film. You let him go off and do some experimental movie about Hoodum Quat, because you've never heard of him before, and let him do whatever he wants. If he wants to make some, you know, weird, strange, artsy-fartsy Star Wars film, let him. But don't let somebody like this who's untested near the major characters. Because regardless of how I feel about the film overall, my problems lie with a lot of what happened and how characters were treated and storylines were just completely disregarded from The Force Awakens.
I keep saying about The Last Jedi, this is what happens when you give a hipster a camera. It really is. I mean, you get a $200 million art film, and now everybody, well, you just don't understand. I'm like, no, I understand perfectly well. I think it blows. That's all.
Well, and going off of what you just said about the hipster, George Lucas was kind of a hipster, right?
Yeah.
But he got that shit out of his system with THX.
Yeah, and American Graffiti.
He had no illusions about what Star Wars was going into it. If anybody knew what it was, he did, obviously. He knew what he was making. He was making a kid's movie. He even said that to his friends.
Yeah, and now the Star Wars is winning Adult Movie of the Year from AARP. I'm like, I think we've gotten so far removed from what Star Wars is.
Why? If you had a fucking plan, why? If you're gonna build a house, do you look at the plans and go, "Fuck this, let's just build it with whatever we got here"?
Well, even an even better analogy: if you're buying a house with plans to renovate it. Okay, yeah, you want to make some changes, but you don't come in and just tear it completely down unless there's severe termite damage.
Oh, shit. Well, we'll have to see what JJ is going to do to fix this mess now, so...
And, yeah, to me, that's the only reason why they brought J.J. Abrams in, is to fix this. Really. I think that's why they brought him in.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and they've just been towing the line right up until this point. Kathleen Kennedy's like, I don't want to say she probably knows this, but we can't speak for her. We don't know what's going on. But at the same time, there's really no other reason to bring in J.J. Abrams other than you knew you had a mess on your hands, and now you have to go back to the drawing board to have somebody fix it, because that's always the guy you bring in to revitalize a franchise, J.J. Abrams.
Well, not only that, well, let's just put this in perspective here, and I'm not trying to piss anybody off out there, but you look at it this way. When JJ did Star Trek, what did everybody say? This guy should be directing Star Wars, not Star Trek. The moment he directs a Star Wars movie, everybody a lot of people complained about it, okay? And then, obviously, going forward, even though he said out loud in many interviews, oh, I wish I was continuing the story, and somebody else has got to get their chance at this. Rightfully so, totally understandable. But like you just said, they got rid of Trevorrow. That we all seen coming from a mile away.
Oh yeah, was that Book of Henry movie? Yeah. After that, I don't think you get a job directing a dog food commercial. So
okay, so then it shows like between that and the Lord and Miller thing with Solo and a little bit of the reshoots with Edwards. Okay, maybe they're trying to get this shit in order. Maybe they are. But they think they know more about it than the people who make the shit.
As I always say, they think they're smarter than they actually are.
Right. And of course, being the type of producer she is, Kathleen Kennedy is going to trust her filmmakers. Why shouldn't she? All the filmmakers she worked with prior to that, it's all kind of worked out pretty good for her. And every time I turn around and stick up for Kathleen Kennedy, she goes and says something stupid to make me feel like, why? Why are you doing this? Because I, for a while, could see it from the other side. It seemed like, okay, rumors were she didn't want Lord Miller to begin with.
Yeah.
Rumors were she didn't want Trevorrow to begin with. You could surmise or theoretically put together that maybe the upper management at Disney are forcing these things upon, the Star Wars franchise. That may not be true. We don't know anymore. I'm to the point where I really don't know what to think. Everybody just seems like they don't know what they're doing over there if they're tossing out the plans.
Yeah. I haven't got much more to say, but they're treating this like it's an indie film. That's the problem. They're treating these movies like they're indie films. They're not. Okay, you got to get someone who knows what they're doing.
To that point, yes, you need a Kevin Feige, and evidently the theory, which is seeming more unlikely day by day, that she's just getting interference from the studio, she's got to go. She does not have the chops to handle this. But if this is the case, if she'd allowed this to happen, if this was her choice to let Rian Johnson do whatever the fuck he wanted, toss out the plans, she needs to go.
Or the other side of this, maybe Rian Johnson convinced her, says, no, I've got a great idea, trust me. But then again, it was her. It fell to her to make that call. She could have been one to say, "Listen, Ryan, I know you've got a plan. You've got an idea here, but trust me, this is the way we want to go." And unless he totally sabotages her, undercuts her, and then that's the only other thing I can think of. But
which doesn't seem to be the case.
No, she's got the last say on this. And I can picture her saying, yeah, Ryan, write me some strong female characters. So, and say, oh, no problem, Miss Kennedy. I'll get right on it.
And that's where I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, what the fuck? Because I didn't have as many issues with this movie. This movie could have been saved. There's a lot of good in this movie, and that's the part that pisses me off. There is some interesting ideas in this film. There is some really cool,
change a couple
scenes and stuff.
Change a few scenes. Cut the Canto Bite scene. Get rid of those resistance bombers and substitute them with Y-wings. First of all, and that solves that problem. Damn, that is the biggest piece of evidence to show you that Rian Johnson has no idea, or Kathleen Kennedy have no idea what they're doing. That the resistance bombers were made of paper mache. That they fell apart when you breathe on them.
Well, that part doesn't even bother me so much because I'm used to Star Wars being more, George Lucas is very guilty of this, being more artistically accurate than scientifically accurate.
Yeah.
I think that's even one of his quotes. That part didn't bother me, but like just the way that what happened with Leia and Super Leia and all that crap. There was more than one obvious way to let this character have a graceful exit. The way they handled Luke, I wouldn't have had any problem with the lead up had we had a decent payoff. I've said that in other places too, but it's totally true. We didn't get a decent payoff with him. So I understand most of the gripes with this film. Some of them I don't. There's the whole thing with the Yoda. How can he make lightning? He's dead. I kind of remember Obi-Wan Kenobi saying something. Strike me down, and I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Well, it's symbolically powerful.
Once you become a part of the Force, who's to say you can't do shit like that?
I understand. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, it just comes across as within the context of everything else that had been fucked up in the movie. It just comes across as another dumb thing.
I get some people's gripes about how he's acting, but what I'm getting at is I just don't think people would have had as much of a problem with scenes like that and little things like that if it wasn't for some of the big things. That's all. I don't know. I'd like to see JJ's treatment.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've covered. I think we've
beat this to death.
Yeah, we beat this to death. So we want to know what you think. Let us know in the comments.